Are you a young professional trying to figure out this whole money thing? Well, you're not alone.
In this video, we are going to be sharing with you the essential components and aspects of financial literacy and why it's so important for us as young professionals to know all of these things.
Hey wealth builders, and welcome back to another episode of The Bemused. My name is Mishak.
And I'm Akiva. I'm a certified financial planner and money coach for young professionals in their 20s and 30s. And we have helped thousands of young adults just like you experience financial success. And this video is going to give you the start that you need if you're looking to do the same.
First things first, what is financial literacy?
Yeah, we don't want to take for granted that we all have the same language when it comes to this jargon and this buzzword that is financial literacy. So let's get crystal clear on what exactly we're talking about. So when we say financial literacy, we are simply talking about education and knowledge, right? It's really the know-how around money. It's the budgeting, the saving, just the things that you need to know to make good money decisions, essentially.
And you may be asking, why does financial literacy even matter? And I would say that the best way to describe it is, okay, we all know the concept of money, right? But there are certain things that you don't know unless you're educated on. For example, when you're opening a bank account, most people don't know
I was opening a bank.
that with savings accounts, that there's a certain maximum amount of times that you can withdraw funds from that account. That's something that you would not know unless you read or someone educated you on that fact. And that's a true fact, by the way, in case those of you who didn't know that. So that's an example of something that you have to learn to know, because if you did withdraw funds from that savings account in this example more than the allotted times in the time period, that account will be transferred or switched over from a savings account to a checking account. So that's a really good example of why it's important to learn these things, because that's a trap that little old me fell into at 18 years old because I didn't know. So I learned by just going through the experience, but you don't have to do that. I can share that knowledge with you and you can learn this way. So that's why I would say financial education is such a big thing, or financial literacy.
Yes, and knowledge can be powerful. We know it's not the end all be all. And there's more steps to this. It's not enough to just have financial literacy, to just be financially literate. It's about what you do with that information as well. So we want to also use financial literacy as our jumping pad or starting pad. What is the word I'm trying to say? The phrase. Our launch pad for achieving financial well-being. That's really the ultimate goal, is financial literacy being used as a tool to achieve financial well-being. So what is financial well-being, right? So financial literacy is the knowing. Financial well-being is kind of the state of application. When you've applied the knowledge that you've received, you're able to actually use it in your everyday life. You are able to get to a state or a place where you now have achieved financial well-being.
And financial well-being is, I would say, a really powerful phase, because it takes, like she said, the knowing, and now you're applying it in ways that I think are more useful to you. Again, people are going to throw a lot of information at you. You'll see that on social media. Oh, do this. And if you want to be financially free, do that. Like a lot of buzzwords. And a lot of people, I think, are on this hamster wheel trying to chase after the best things, but they don't even know the basics, right? You don't know how to really manage yourself with, okay, I have a bank account, I have a this. You're getting hit with overdraft fees. You're getting hit with all of these fees from banks because you don't necessarily know the simple tactics and the simple, framework that you need to just, get through those mundane things that we all have to deal with to avoid fees. Just in this example, I think that everyone is, trying to go and jump ahead. I think that you need to learn the basics first, and then apply those things to your everyday life. And once you have mastered that, then you can kind of build on top. But once you have that good foundation, like Akiva was saying earlier, you can launch into other things. Because I do think with money, just like anything else, you do need to have a foundation before you can kind of run and get into other things.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely don't want to put the cart before the horse, as we're saying, especially as young professionals. Like he said, it's a very, very common thing. We're following all these influencers and we're seeing the success stories of other people, and we want to start at point Z when we need to start at foundational point A. And sometimes, little known fact, little known truth bomb, it's a tiny truth bomb, we don't even need to get to Z to achieve financial well-being for ourselves, right? Sometimes A through C is enough, right? And so it's understanding as young professionals, what are those steps that we need to take and that we need to focus on as young professionals to get us into that state. So that begs the question now that we've set context, what are some of the specific things that as young professionals we need to know? What are those core pillars of financial literacy that we need? Now, we're not gonna go over everything, right? We're not going to mention every single aspect of financial literacy because there is a lot to know, right? There's so many different aspects of life and money that affect us. However, I would say there are some key things that differentiate financial literacy at the stage of life that we are at as young professionals in our 20s and 30s that are different than some of the things that our older counterparts or even our younger counterparts, right? Younger kids need to know. So let's focus on what are specifically those aspects of financial literacy that are important for us to understand during this phase of life. And let me just preface this by saying we go into this a lot more detail in our webinar. So we will have a link to that down in the description box and also up in the cards. It is called Wealth Unlocked: From Stumbling to Soaring in Your 20s and 30s Without a Six-Figure Salary. So we'll go into all the detail there, but we're gonna hit the highlights in this video. So the first big thing that we really need to lean into, especially in this phase, is mastering our money mindsets. It's really digging in and understanding our relationship with money. Yes, this is important at any life stage, but especially at this stage because as young adults, we are really still coming into ourselves as adults, right? We are really getting to that stage, that critical transition of really transitioning into adulthood fully. And money mindset plays a big role in this. We're at that stage where now we can really start to unpack a lot of the things around our upbringing, around our exposures to money, our money experiences when we were younger, and how that is affecting the way that we are dealing with money in our current day scenario. And the sooner we can figure that stuff out, the better it's going to be to set us up for financial success long term. Money mindset is also the secret sauce that really takes us from doing to being, right? We talked about the difference between financial literacy and financial well-being. Money mindset is the secret sauce to making that transition because it's not enough to just know. If you're not gonna do, right? And the reason you're not gonna do what you know all comes down to money mindset. So do not sleep on that at this stage of life. Ask those hard questions of yourself and really dig deep into those kinds of things.
So while on that note, let's talk about student loans. Many of us have them, and it's time that we get comfortable with them. So what do I mean by that? I'd suggest that you look into your loan balances, how much interest rates each loan carries, and know what the total amount of your loans are. These things are just really great things to get in the habit of, familiarizing yourself with so that you can come up with an action plan on how you'd like to approach them. Are you going to use the debt snowball method? Or are you going to use the avalanche method? Whatever works best for you. There's no right or wrong answer. But I think that the correct answer is to know what you're dealing with so that you can make that plan.
Yeah, and understanding the system is a really big part of that, right? A lot of times we just look at, okay, I know this is how much I owe. This is how much you're telling me I have to pay every month. I just pay my bill and keep it pushing. But this is one of those areas where it really does benefit you to understand a little bit of how the sausage is made, because that really can help inform how exactly it is that you will tackle this going forward, right? Make sure I get comfortable with your student loans. We don't want to get too comfortable with them. They're not going to become our BFFs or anything like that, but close enough where we feel like we have a solid handle and we're not just either throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping it goes away. I make my payments and assuming it goes away without truly understanding really what's going on behind the scenes and having a clear, transparent action plan for getting you to the finish line, or at least some level of management where you can live life, right? And manage your student loans alongside of it.
Yeah, and if you're at that stage where maybe you are still in school, you're in early 20s, or you just got out from undergrad and you're thinking about going to grad school, I would also say, like Akiva said, is to think about this. This is a really interesting time where you're thinking about going to that next step, is to think about, okay, I have 4 years worth of loans potentially, and you can see the numerical value, we've had a pause on student loans, but at the time of this recording, student loan interest has already begun again. So you're starting to see that interest kind of tick up on that. So think about it in a way where it's like, all right, if I take on another 30 grand for this school year or another 20 grand or whatever it is, how will that look in the next 6 months or in the next year?
In the next 10 years.
Yeah. So it's framing it differently now that you have all of that information from your previous loans, your previous mistakes, if that's what you want to call them, or previous actions, that's probably a better word. Now you can look to the future with a different pair of eyes. You have different kind of goggles on where it's like, okay, does this make sense? Or if it does make sense, what will I be dealing with when I'm done? How is this going to impact me and impact my future? I think that's the going from, again, that different state of mind, that mindset, where I'm not just aimlessly just signing on the dotted line, sure, because I'm going to get a degree at the end of the day. That's great, but I also want to also understand when I sign what I'm signing up for and understand the consequences at the end.
The next important thing for us to focus on in terms of financial literacy for young professionals is investing. Now, when I say investing, I do not mean that you need to know about real estate syndication and crypto and all the fancy stuff that everybody's talking about, options and this and that. We talk about the basics, all right? And the basics, like I said in the beginning, A through C is all you need sometimes. It is that holds true, especially when it comes to investing. Right now, if you want to go wild and go crazy and do all the extra complicated stuff, God bless you, be my guest. That's not my ministry. Even as a professional, I like to keep things real simple and vanilla. I'm gonna tell you that right now. But it's important to understand the basics. What a common mistake I see many of us do is that either we just don't invest at all because we feel like we don't know enough about it and we don't have that confidence level built up yet, which is why it's so important to learn. Or on the other side, we are randomly investing in stocks that were recommended by friends, or maybe one that you saw in the news that seemed to be doing well, or whatever the rationale might be, without really understanding what you're doing. And then all you see is your portfolio either crashing and burning, or maybe even doing really well by happenstance, but you have no idea how that happened, if it will happen again, and you make a lot of mistakes along the way. So investing is very, very important for us as young professionals to know, because it really is one of those things that can really make a huge difference for our future the earlier that we start. So the earlier the better when it comes to investing.
And a great way to get started is by utilizing the accounts that your job is offering, right? They're investing for retirement. A lot of people, when they hear investing, they don't think of that. That is investing, all right? You don't have to go out and try and invest in a real estate property. I'm not telling you not to do that, but that's not the only way for you to begin investing, or borrow a whole bunch of money from the bank because you want to put it all on Apple, because Apple, you think that they're going to do well. People do these things. And like Akiva said, you could end up in a really good position, but do you want it to be by happen chance? Or do you want it to be because you actually happenstance, or do you want it to be because you actually understood the principles, right? Where you can take what you've done here and recreate it, do it again, do it again. And yeah, there might be opportunities, there might be instances where you do lose. That's a part of life. The stock market, it's a part of it. It goes up, it goes down. But you want to know that when you see your stock price falling or something happening, that you're not, oh my gosh, all this money. It's, you're like, all right, I'm good. I'm okay. I know what I'm doing here. I'm in a position where I know how to pivot if need be, as opposed to just like panicking and where you like sell it all and then tomorrow it's up better than and then now you're upset. It's like you have to be able to weather the storms throughout the investing life that you will have. But definitely start with, I would say, that retirement account. And then once you got that, maybe build on that. Or hell, maybe even play around with that retirement account, because that's something that I truthfully did not really know that much about. Akiva was the one who was like, oh no, you need to switch that, you need to switch this, you need to whatever. And again, that was a learning moment for me, something that I didn't necessarily know that I had to learn, that, oh, you can tweak this. It doesn't have to be like just what you put in is wherever your employer by default has put it. You can have a target fund. You can have this. This is not advice, just sharing the different things that you can do.
Yeah, and it does not have to be scary. It does not have to be complicated. Again, investing to me was the most scary part of the process. And once I really learned, I was like, really? That's it? Like, it seems so intimidating, and it definitely can be, but it doesn't have to be. So don't be afraid. If you're like me, don't be afraid of it. You only need a little bit of information, a little bit of knowledge, and a little bit of money. It's not just for the rich people. A little bit of money. $5, you're good to get started.
The next one is credit. And I would say the sooner you start, the better. This is one that, again, people have told us like, oh, at 18, don't get a credit card. All you're going to do is just max it out and your credit is going to be shot, before you even turn 19. And I would say that maybe that's the track record of probably most young people, but it doesn't have to be your story, right? I think that with anything, that education on how you should handle your credit card, the framework and the mindset behind it, where I'm borrowing someone else's money, and that if I borrow it, that there's a consequence, that they're going to charge me interest, when I make these payments, or when I borrow this money, depending on when I pay back the funds. So it's just understanding the whole concept so that you don't get caught in those traps where it does become something negative. I can, again, share with us that we've had credit cards for years, and for those of you that have been following our channel for a little while, we have never paid interest a day. A day.
I can't even tell you my interest rate on my credit cards, because to me, it don't matter. I don't pay it. So. And
it's very doable not to fall into those traps of interest. But again, it's knowing how to not fall into the traps, because it's sometimes, again, it's easy, right? Anything that's so easy where here's a card and just swipe it up and enjoy yourself and just pay me back $25 a month or $30 a month. That sounds really nice, where it's like, oh, I can go and just buy what I want and pay $25 a month from now until when I pay it off. But again, when you have that knowledge right here, something doesn't seem right here. How are you making money off of this? When you ask those questions and you start to get that knowledge, when you have the complete picture, you can, okay, this is how I should handle this. I should use it and proceed with caution, but I need to know what I'm getting myself into.
Yeah, and the debt piece of it is really just one side of the credit story too. The other side is actually understanding how to get a great credit score. And yes, it is possible to have a really great credit score even in your 20s, right? We've had 700 plus credit scores for as long as I remember. I think it took me 3 months when I first started my credit journey to get into the 7s, right? And so as an 18-year-old, right? Like when I just started like really fully my credit journey. And so I think it's really just understanding. I feel there's a lot of misconceptions out there about how you actually build a credit score, because it's really not as complicated as people make it out to be. A lot of people have, like I said, a lot of myths that they believe about what to actually do to build their score that are actually hurting them in the long run. And so it's understanding that, again, that financial literacy when it comes to credit can be so important at this age and stage. And also the longer that you have great credit history, the more that compounds and helps your score the older that we get, and the more advanced that we get with our credit story. So credit, really important. The last section of things that you're going to want to really know and understand as a young adult is the mechanics of a lot of the life phases and events that we often pursue in our 20s, in our 30s. How does it work when you buy a home, right? Who are all the people involved? What are the costs I should know about? What are all these things called? What should I expect? The processes, the ins and outs of these things. When I'm ready to move out for the first time, rent my first apartment, like what do I need to know, right? Buying or leasing a car. Just understanding some of these fundamental things, right? Even when it comes to having a baby, right? Like what are the things that I need to expect? And those are questions that I feel like aren't asked often enough. As young adults, we kind of go into these things blindly and just hope that it all works out. It's like, oh, well, buying a house is a good thing, right? So I'm just going to jump right in. And it's like, no, let's know before we do, because you can step into a lot of very expensive potholes if you don't first know what you're doing and understanding the process, so that you can best prepare yourself to tackle and to handle all these big things that we try to do at this stage of life, right? Planning a wedding, even, like, you name name it. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of life going on in our 20s and 30s.
And I think many of us fall into these traps not because there isn't some understanding of, like, you know, debt or whatever, but I think we get caught up in the emotions. You know, it's, oh, well, I've graduated college. I'm supposed to have a new car by now, right? Like, my friends' parents bought them a car. Maybe they could afford it, but John has a new car. I should have one too. So now I'm going to a dealership and trying to get a car. And, you know, your credit might not be that great and you're just looking for the closest person to co-sign, you know? Like, that's what's going to get me into this vehicle. Or, you know, I am trying to decide on if I'm, you know, going to have a big wedding or a small one. I want one, I'm taking out a loan. Like, I don't care. It's my special day. We get caught up in the emotion of it all instead of just pressing pause and saying, you know what? Like, what am I giving up for my tomorrow by doing what I do today? You know, if I get this loan, how is it going to affect my future? You know, yes. And I say this with no judgment.
Yeah, and you can be doing this with the best of intentions, thinking that you're making a good
best decision for
thinking
today.
Thinking that this is actually going to be a step in the right direction when it's not at this stage.
You know, because you're not thinking about down the road. You're thinking, and I hear it all the time, oh, well, I make this now, and I can make the payment now, but you're not taking into account that you get sick. You're not taking into account that something can go wrong with your parent that might, you know, change, your mind shift might change, where now that's not a priority for you to pay that because you're trying to help your parent. You know, if you had maybe had a little bit of money put aside, you know, a nest egg, like maybe you wouldn't feel so strapped in these type of real life adult situations that you're going through where you feel like it's one or the other. As opposed to, okay, maybe I need to, at some point, maybe tone down some of these things, but I don't have to make a life or death decision right now. But the new car that you bought, that you were paying a crazy premium on with with car insurance and paying a very high car note, you know, now that's like, you know, oh my goodness, like, now I feel like I can't pay my rent now. I can't pay this because of all of these things, where you're not thinking about that when you made that transaction 2 years ago or 6 months ago. And now you find yourself in a situation that you don't know how you're going to get out. So again, no judgment, but that is the honest truth that I think is that the emotion gets the best of us. And sometimes you do have to detach your emotion from some things and really just get down to what makes sense. And what makes sense might be different for Akiva than it's for me, right? It's also what I value and what is important to me. But at least I want to go into my decisions knowing what I'm sacrificing for this thing.
So we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below on which aspect of financial literacy you find the most intriguing or the most interesting, or that you want to learn more about. Let's get that conversation going in the comments. The link to the webinar, one more time, will also be down in the description, also pinned in the first comment. I'll make sure I do that. So check that out if this video resonated with you and you want to go deeper and learn more. That is going to be the spot for you.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.